We also offer a lot of small group instruction with interventionist positions who help with that direct reading instruction that many people are here for, because that's what's needed to help someone with dyslexia overcome their obstacles or what difficulties they have associated with it so that they can then go be their amazing self.
Welcome everyone! I'm so excited to interview Maria Paleocelli today for my channel, and Maria is the CEO of Provident Charter School. Maria, can you tell us more about yourself?
Sure. Good morning, Katerina. I am a special education teacher by trade. I have taught learning support classrooms early on in my career in the 90s. I've taught in several public schools in the Pittsburgh area. Early on in my teaching career, I came upon a training that the University of Pittsburgh was offering. It was in the 90s, and I found it in my staff room of my elementary school, and it was describing the Orton-Gillingham approach. I had a graduate degree in special education, never heard of it. But I read the paragraph and it sounded like my students that I taught, that it would be beneficial. And I called Pitt. It was a summer workshop. I said, I'd like to audit this course. I just paid for a master's degree. And they said, well, no, but the Masonic organization in Pittsburgh here would pay for 2 of your 3 credits if you take this course. Took the course. In 2 weeks, very intense course all day, I learned more about reading and teaching reading than I did in 4 years of college and graduate work. So it was really significant for me and certainly life-changing. At that time, at the end of the course, Rita Bean, who was very involved in reading in Pittsburgh for years, was tasked to recommend someone to help open the Children's Dyslexia Center in the Masonic building, which is in the northern suburb of Pittsburgh. And so they invited me to come help them open this center. So I kept my daytime teaching job, and I thought, well, this is interesting. I'll help them open this center. But long story short, I ended up resigning from my teaching position, and I spent 10 years at the Children's Dyslexia Center. And in those 10 years, I had an opportunity to work with many, many students and families, train teachers in the Orton-Gillingham approach, and just see a lot of really amazing things happen. And so spent 10 years there, did a lot of other consulting work for reading intervention programs, training at intermediate units, taught again for a few years, came across Curtis Kossman, who is the gentleman who founded Provident Charter School. He had reached out at some point in the early 2000s because that Dyslexia Center really was the only resource in Western Pennsylvania for people who have a child or have some lived experience with dyslexia. And so he reached out, he said, I want to open a school. Curtis Kossman is dyslexic, he has 2 children who have dyslexia. And so I was able to get in contact with him and work with his initial board to prepare the application for Provident Charter, write some curriculum. Long process. And we opened this school in 2016, which was kind of a dream come true. And we opened a second school in Baden in Beaver County in 2023.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people heard about Providence. So for example, some families are moving out of state just to get in, and sometimes it's challenging, especially if it's a 3rd grader, 4th grader, and beyond. So can you tell us more about the admission process, more details about the school, and how some families who are in need of dyslexia intervention can get in?
Sure. So a charter school is a public school, but it has some guidelines or rules or parameters that it has to function within based on the district that provides the charter. So there's an authorizing district in Troy Hill. Pittsburgh Public Schools is the authorizing district. And they allow us to market to our mission. They allow us to advertise that we have programming, unique programming, and we do, designed for children with dyslexia or language-based learning difficulties. They do not permit us, however, to be selective in our enrollment. And so what that means, as in any other public school, anyone can come here and just say, well, I like the idea that you have small groups. I like the idea that, you do explicit phonics instruction. We're not dyslexic, but I think this will be good for my child. And we do need to enroll them. We also don't have unlimited enrollment. We have to maintain what we have said or set out in our charter. Our enrollment here is for grades 2 through 8, 336 students. And so when we are at a cap, then a lottery takes place. And so sometimes there's a wait list. Our second school that just opened this year is within the Ambridge School District, and they have allowed us to not only market to students with dyslexia, but also to be selective in focusing in on only admitting those students who do struggle with reading.
That's great. And then Baden School can start at first grade level.
Yes, we will be 1st through 8th grade. Right now we're enrolling in grades 1 through 5. We had students in grades 2, 3, and 4 this year. Those 4th graders will move on to 5th grade, and we are enrolling 1st graders, and we have a number of spots. And so it's a beautiful new school, and we truly have replicated what we've been successful with here. So even one of our initial principals went out there, a number of our teachers went out there. So it truly is a replication.
Wonderful, great. Tell me more about the admission process, so especially for Baden School, where students should have some evidence that they have dyslexia. So do they get tested at their public school? How does it work?
So that can look a few different ways. Some students do have an IEP or have already had an evaluation, and they just simply share that with us, and we're able to review it. If students do not have any diagnosis or have not had any testing, we can do an evaluation there that just shows that their percentiles or their deficits are in reading, spelling, decoding, and go from there. So,
does it cost anything?
No.
So evaluation is free?
Yes, but I will be clear, it's not a full psychoeducational evaluation. It's a reading assessment. It's an identification of present ed levels or deficits in specific reading skills. So if students have an IEP, they have actually gone through what's called a full psychoeducational evaluation from a psychologist. This is an assessment of, are you deficient in reading? Is this, an isolated deficit because you have strengths in other areas? And so I just want to make it's not a full evaluation.
Right.
Those are costly, actually, so I wanted to make sure I was clear.
And at what age can that evaluation be done? I heard it could be as early as 6 years old. Do you have any suggestions?
Sure. So I would suggest that early evaluations as early as 6 should be done by a trained psychologist or neuropsychologist. And so because at 6, there could be a lot of things that could account for maybe delayed development in reading. And so you would really want someone who is trained and be able to evaluate family history and everything that a full evaluation would do to evaluate someone that young. Sometimes I've seen those evaluations say predicted dyslexic condition, come back in 2 years to confirm. There are certainly, screeners, phonological screeners, phonemic awareness assessments that can indicate that, a 6-year-old might not be, on par or, moving in the right direction. But that is young, and so there could be a number of reasons for that. So.
I see. Let's talk about the cost of education. I know most cities charge for specialized dyslexia schools. I know in New York area it could be even $70,000 a year. And Provident Charter School
is free. It is free because it's a public school.
Right.
So it is a tuition free, and that really was by design. Our board, Curtis Kossman, actually is a gentleman who of means who was able to pay for a lot of private tutoring for his children. Sent his son to the Gal School, which is a private school designed for children with learning difficulties, and those exist in other parts of the country with a hefty tuition. And so he wanted this to be free and available to anyone. We have here in Troy Hill, close to a third of our enrollment are students from Pittsburgh public schools. So the board felt strongly about even being able to impact populations that might not even know how to find an evaluation, be able to afford an evaluation, but still meet a need of deficits in literacy.
And another great benefit of Provident School is that families can get transportation to school, right? Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So the way that charter law is written is that if their home school is within a 10-mile radius, then the home district is responsible to provide transportation. And so that really helps families. Here in Troy Hill, we have students from 45, 46 different districts. And so while we do have a number of districts bus, we also have a number of families who do transport. And they come a long way because many of them would be traveling that distance and paying an expense for private tutoring.
Right.
But they are able to get that instruction during the day.
Yes, and what I noticed, the buses are pretty small.
Yes.
They're not overwhelming
Right.
and huge, so it's not as loud. I know some
Right.
kids complain that typical school buses could be very loud. And again, that's another benefit.
Yes.
Tell me more about food options. Again, you have a cafeteria, unlike a lot of private schools.
Right, we do have a cafeteria, and we have a great cafeteria team. Lunch is important when you're a little person, and they cook all of their food here from scratch, and so it's healthy. It meets the standards of the National School Lunch Program. We also are able to provide lunch for our staff, which is a great gift for them, and it's healthy, it's fresh, it's often fills the building. We can smell them cooking in the morning, and so it is truly positive.
Right, yes, and some kids can get breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snack.
Absolutely, yes. We do provide breakfast, and we even received an additional grant this year for an expanded breakfast, and next year we plan to add a salad bar, which will be positive too.
Right, wonderful. Tell me more about grants and different programs that the school offers.
Sure. So we have been recipients of what's called the 21st Century grant, which was a 5-year, a great opportunity for us. It was a 5-year grant that provided after-school care as well as summer programming. It had several functions. For families who needed it as childcare, it certainly provided childcare, but it also had a component. It's about healthy lifestyle as well as supporting academics. So students had some additional academic time, as well as some really nice programs that they wouldn't have had during the school day. Girls on the Run, Attack Theater have come, the improv. So opportunities for them to be engaged, to practice speaking, and in a fun kind of way. I think there's been painting and cooking and just a lot of programming that grant allowed for. It also provided transportation, which was huge. And unfortunately, the grant was not renewed. Our school is relatively small compared with a lot of other larger districts that it could be argued that there's more impact with that money spent in a larger space. So we're looking at other options. We do have the Sarah Heinz Center, which is just down the hill from us, and we have about 10 students who this year Sarah Heinz bus comes and picks them up and takes them down there. Large gym, pool, games, also, food, snacks, well received. There are a lot of after-school options. Many families are aware of those. That's just one of them, but it's in close proximity to us. So they're very interested in expanding that relationship. We are also looking at other grant options. This notification came out rather late. I mean, it really, they extended the deadline and then they took a while to score. So it came out, I feel like in mid-late April, and we were, a little bit caught off guard by it. And so want to meet a need. We're currently surveying families to find out what exactly is the need, because I do think one of the issues that it may not worked out for us is we did have trouble meeting our numbers. There's a requirement for how many people served. And so because we only enroll 336, we're only going to have a percentage of individuals who need that kind of care. But when you need it, you need it.
Right.
So we are looking at options for that.
Yes. So you mentioned the size of the school. How many students are typically in each class? What's the ratio, student to teacher?
A student to teacher. So really, truly, it's been student to staff is written in our charter as 1 to 6. But honestly, it's closer to 1 to 3 when you consider all staff. In a classroom, though, we follow a co-teaching model in most rooms, not all, in which there are 2 teachers. And depending on enrollment or how things play out, there could be anywhere from 10 to 14 students. So sometimes it's a little under, sometimes it's a little over. And that co-teaching model has worked well in our younger grades, and we intend to continue that. We also offer a lot of small group instruction with interventionist positions who help with that direct reading instruction that many people are here for, because that's what's needed to help someone with dyslexia overcome their obstacles or what difficulties they have associated with it, so that they can then go be their amazing self.
Yes. Let's talk about Wilson instruction.
Sure.
And maybe you can clarify. I know there's a lot of confusion about Orton-Gillingham program, Wilson reading. Tell us more about the differences and why you adopted the Wilson program.
Sure. So dyslexia is neurological. It is truly been shown, to exist in the brain. So it's not something you can try harder through and get through. But there are educational interventions that actually do help people overcome the phonological deficit and learn to read accurately and improve their fluency, so that the impact is not that huge. The widely accepted and best remedial routines are what's called the Orton-Gillingham approach, and it's named after 2 individuals, Samuel Orton, who was a neuropsychiatrist who lived a long, long time ago, and Anna Gillingham, who was an educator, and he studied individuals with dyslexia, and she was a teacher, and they got together and he used his theories and his observations, and she designed what I call a series of remedial routines, basically the lesson plan or the strategies, the ways in which an instructor works with a student to lead them to mastery with specific sounds. And so the Orton-Gillingham approach is not like a manual or a curriculum or a scope and sequence that someone there are principles of Orton-Gillingham. It's multisensory, it's direct instruction, it's systematic, and then there are many specific programs that have taken that philosophy or that approach and put into a programmatic structure that can be implemented by teachers. Sometimes even, parents will purchase something. So anyone, I'm careful when I talk, anyone can buy materials. But what's really critical in terms of providing remediation for individuals with dyslexia is training. Because if you're only buying a manual, it can take you through steps, but if you don't understand why or how to do something a certain way when you're presenting a new sound or a spelling rule to a student, or how to correct their errors in a multisensory way, then they're just getting the same thing that they would get anywhere else. So the training is really the important part to go with whatever program. So Wilson was, there's a woman named Barbara Wilson who actually put this Orton-Gillingham approach into a usable set of materials. We adopted it early on because it helps in a school setting give everyone a common language. It also helps with families. So I can say to you, your child is in step 2, and everyone sort of understands what that means. And so it helps with universal language. It also helps in that the training was able to be done during the school day for teachers, along with on-site coaching. And so it was very functional and practical for us to use early on. As we have added on in years, and with staff, we do have some on our staff who have traditional Orton-Gillingham approach training. And so what that means is they don't need the manual. They don't need the program. They've been trained extensively in that they understand the structure of English, they understand the strategies, they understand how to diagnose a student or evaluate where they are, and just go from there. And my thing is that they can teach someone to read with a stick in the dirt. They don't need the books. They just understand how English is organized and how someone needs to learn it slowly in a multisensory way until it's mastered, and then how to add on while maintaining a review so that all goes into long-term memory. And so we've often talked, people will say, why can't my school do this? Why can't my home school do this? It's really a lot of training. It really is. Even the Wilson certification process, and we prioritize it. So we create time in the teacher's day for them to work with their student, to be observed, to do some of the coursework. They certainly have a lot to do on their own time as well, but it's time consuming. And so we commit to it in our schedule, we commit to it financially, and we commit to it in terms of support of these individuals. And so, outside of this commitment, you have to have individuals who are motivated intrinsically themselves to want to go through all of this training. A school district will just say, okay, we'll buy the materials, or we'll send someone to the 3-day overview. Well, the overview is just the overview. And so it's just hard for them. Our charter actually has some extra minutes in our school day. We have a few extra days, and we have a little bit longer of a schedule. And so it allows us that block of intervention time. And larger schools are often at the mercy of the schedule. Allowing someone to have that free time to go take this training and to commit to it is just something that they don't allocate the money or time too often.
Right. And kids at Provident get Wilson instruction every day, right?
That's correct.
Is it
yes.
1 hour?
Yes. Well, I think some of the younger grades, it may be 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so with some of our young students, the first or second graders, they may not be ready actually to get right into Wilson. And so they'll work with structured literacy instruction in terms of letters and sounds that will give them enough emerging skills to be able to head into word reading Wilson. So we assess them when they come in, and we identify what their needs are. And so then there are also some students who may or may not need Wilson, or who may not need Wilson, or have had tutoring previously. And so we evaluate them, and we don't want to waste anyone's time. If they need to come in and start at step 3, and they can show mastery up to that point, then we start them here instead. Do you know what I mean? Right. So that their time is not wasted as well.
And do I understand it right that you typically break students into smaller groups?
Correct.
And rotate them?
Yes.
Tell us more about, as you just mentioned, that if a student is already more advanced than the rest, they probably will go to the more advanced group, and then you evaluate them. So tell me a little bit more about
Well, for the intervention blocks, it's ideal to have them as homogeneous as possible. And even in a group of 6, you could have them at, various levels. But we try to have those groups be dynamic and that they can move and change, because when you're talking about individuals with neurological learning difficulties, some of them, their rates of acquisition of new knowledge will vary, and their rates of retention. So there are some who will maybe severely dyslexic and just need an amount of repetition that others in the group may not need. And so then we need to be responsive to that so that, you know, we're not holding students back, but yet we're giving some the repetition that they require.
Right. And you do not have homework until grade 4 or 5?
I believe grade 5. You know, I'm not sure if 4th grade has started it, but it is such a gift for families. So when you have someone who struggles with learning, getting up and going to school is hard. And certainly the last thing that any of them want to do when they come home is homework, because it's hard and they've exerted energy and they've tried to hold themselves together all day, and parents are frustrated and then they're upset, and it often just ends up this pretty emotional experience in people's homes that I've heard about for years. And when we share with new families that, you know, there won't be any homework, it's as if you're giving them $1 million. I mean, because they get back their quality of life. They get back their happy child, not their crying child, you know?
Exactly.
And so it's been really, it truly is a gift. I mean, until they get here and they start to gain confidence, because then once they start to experience some success with learning, then they're willing to take more risks learning. But many of them, when they come here, you can just tell they're very frustrated and they don't think they can be successful. And so we need to kind of mop that up a little bit and show them that they can in small ways, and, you know, provide homework that is at their level. That's another challenge. While we certainly want to provide them grade level instruction, homework is meant to be independent, and they might not be able to be independent just yet in their 2nd or 3rd or 4th grade. And so then it becomes, like I said, a parent doing the homework, and just a difficult situation. So we definitely also, though, don't want to be remiss in not preparing our students for what they're going to do when they leave here. Part of our mission is to help students with dyslexia reach their potential and prepare them for the future and transition them out by 8th grade, so that, as I said, they can go be the amazing people that they are, because often they have strengths in non-linguistic areas. And so it's just getting them through school and being literate, so that then they can go do their amazing things that they have strengths in. But the homework delay has just been a real positive. And then we pick it up in the middle school, upper grade areas, so that they can begin to then realize, okay, how do I learn best? How do I organize my materials? How do I manage my time? So that we are addressing and helping them successfully transition.
Definitely. And you also have a slightly longer school day, right? Mm-hmm. So you're able to pack it with knowledge and learning. So I don't want parents to think that, oh, it's going to be a free ride. No, students work.
No, they work here. Oh yeah, they do work. And that's also hard for some at first, because if they've been in a class of 25 and if they are just quiet, they can be left alone. But here in our small groups, they're not left alone. And that's a little uncomfortable at first for some of them. You know, we think it's great because we can have so many reciprocal interactions, but as I said, school is anxiety producing. So they kind of, perceive themselves in a hot seat or having to perform. But, our teachers are kind and patient, and we are designed to come out, to open the door with an understanding that there's a little bit of baggage coming in, and fear, and a reluctance to learn for a lot of reasons.
Maria, can you tell me more about your unique programming besides Wilson reading and multisensory math? I believe math is also more fun and interactive. You also have a lot of really fun classes such as Taekwondo and really cool art and music. Tell us more about that.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, we are the only school, I believe, in the country that has Taekwondo as part of its curriculum, as part of its daily programming. Each student, weekly participates in Taekwondo. And our school founder felt really strongly about that, because Taekwondo, helps individuals with self-control and discipline and perseverance. Our instructor also will talk about how the pattern work that they do is learning, a series of things in sequence, which really, that's what reading is. It's being able to master sounds in sequence. And so it certainly, helps train the brain in some ways. And so it's been so positive. There are some students, I think, who lack confidence because of their learning issues, that they wouldn't even be inclined to try out for a township rec soccer team or baseball team because they don't want to, fail at something else. But Taekwondo is individualized, and so students learn and progress at their own pace. We also have, Grandmaster Zang has designed a belt system that's based on our positive behavior support program in school. And so students can be recommended to be on Team Storm, which is a team of school leaders that show positive behavior, and so we're able to recognize that in them. And then the belts are also based on a recommendation of, following our ethos, of perseverance, compassion, and self-control. And so all of those things are weaved into the Taekwondo class. And so that is a real positive. We do have traditional physical education, which, might rank up there as the favorite class of every child, gym, maybe not everyone, but what coexists a lot with dyslexia is ADHD. And so our students have a lot of energy. And, we have a huge gym, and Mr. Kramer also does a great job with our students. We have a traditional art class. Miss Kristen Weiss, who's been here since we opened in 2016, individuals with dyslexia have trouble with language, but they often have strengths in the visual spatial arts. And so some of our students, it's our goal to not only remediate their deficits, but to help them discover and improve upon their areas of strength. And so we've had a few students go on to Kappa or arts program, even Lincoln Arts, the School for Performing Arts. I'm happy to say we have a music teacher as well who has taken on a musical. We have had several so far. And so again, these are areas in which our students can shine and excel and feel good about. A big one is our Makerspace area. Making is, found in many schools, and there are a number of reasons why that's a valuable experience for students. In our space, it's even more so because their visual spatial strengths, their ability to create, design, engineer, are just really strong. And so to have a space that they can go to and show that they're smart in other ways besides a paper and pencil is really beneficial. And I'll give our students just competed in Design to Make a Difference this past weekend and took home many medals. They create prototypes to solve a problem. We had students create a soccer kick for individuals in wheelchair. The other one was a fidget hoodie. They actually made hoodies that had fidgets, things to do with your hands in the pocket, and then a Wilson language keyboard. So all using, 3D printers, sewing. That room is a wonderful space for our students. There are a lot of different dimensions. There's a recording studio, a wood shop, circuitry and coding, laser cutter, CNC machine, sewing machines. And then sometimes students just are happy to be with cardboard and tape. Right. And so what am I missing? Art, music, phys ed, Taekwondo, Makerspace, and our digital media library, which I still prefer to call library, but I do understand the digital media component of it. and Mrs. Corey is trying to teach our students, everything they need to know to function within G Suite and how to use computers. We are one-to-one here. Our young students have iPads, and then our older students have Chromebooks, because having them learn how technology can assist them to overcome writing and spelling deficits that may be pervasive and persist even after they improve their reading is valuable.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.